Dominaria United happened 6 to 12 decades ago, and we have got to go through it one last time for the commander cards that you missed.
15 to 20 years ago, Dominaria United came out, and we're going to talk to you about the cards that came out specifically from the commander product and didn't appear in the main set. The video starts right now. Highest level of gratitude to our patrons who power the channel through Patreon. Check out the Patreon link in the description to learn about monthly giveaways, VIP Discord access, and even our official playmat. Hello and welcome to the day.
Thank you for spending your time with us.
I'm Baby Driver.
I am a full to-go container of Panda Express, you know, when it's good, like when it slaps. Welcome back to another episode of Jake and Joel Are Magic. We are going through the specifically commander product or ancillary appearances in Collector Booster Dominaria United cards. But before we do it, if you like the video by the end of it, you think it adds any value to your life whatsoever, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and share it with your grandma.
That's right. It really helps out the channel a lot. You can get involved on a deeper level by going over and checking out Patreon. All of the links are in the description of the video if you want to go check out stuff. Get involved. Come pop in the Discord. Say hello. Click that little thing that says wave and everybody will wave at you. We have some cards to talk about today from Dominaria United Commander Decks. So these are cards that don't appear in the main set. You can get the cards out of collector boosters if you get lucky and just pull one of these cards in a full art treatment. We don't get the full art foil treatment of these cards, but these are cards that are really neat. They only appear in the commander decks, and if you've been around for a while in MTG, then you know that sometimes we get cards that are exceptional out of the commander decks. You get Toxic Deluge, you got True Name Nemesis. So over the years, sometimes there's some heavy hitters in there, and it's good to comb through and see if there's anything worthwhile, and that's what we did today.
Go down in the comments and say, Jake, why didn't you say Dockside Extortionist or Fierce Guardianship? And let's get into these cards. Jake, first up, I want to go ahead and jump in on start on this one because I explored this deck very fully on stream. There's a video of me playing it and kind of building it with Chad if you want to go check that out. Dahada, Binder of Wills. It's a Mardu +1 for a 5 loyalty walker, +2 to give up to 1 target legendary creature, Vigi, lifelink, and indestructible until your next turn. That is huge, and it turned out to be way huger than I gave it credit for when I read this card for the first time. That creature just retains indestructible until it's your turn again. This was such a thorn in the side of my opponents. With this 4 mana planeswalker, you want to make sure that you've got a nice little package of 2, 3, and 4 mana legendary creatures because it absolutely goes nuts. And this middle ability is why. -3, reveal the top 4 cards of your library, put any number of legendary cards from among them into your hand, and the rest into your graveyard. Create a treasure token for each card put into your graveyard this way. So Jake, the game became, on 3, can I ramp so that I can, or on 2, can I ramp so that I can play Dahada on 3? -3 Dahada, get 4 treasure tokens, just dump it all in my graveyard because I know I'm running a lot of recursion. Get 4 treasure tokens, use those to drop a legendary creature and protect Dahada. Or go the other way around. Play a legendary creature on 3, Dahada on 4, give it Vigi, lifelink, indestructible, and start -3 in her to get a ton of graveyard fill and treasure tokens going.
I like that this card, and we say this sometimes, is that it gets better in time. The more legends that come out, the more support that it has. So yeah, I think this is a fun commander. I like the colors Mardu. I know that it's not a super strong color combination, but we've seen some really, really strong commanders come out. And yeah, I think that this card is really cool and definitely worth exploring if you do like the treasure mechanics, which we've seen that since treasure came out, we just get more and more treasure support. And so the more treasure support, the more legendary support, the better this card gets.
Yeah, I was a little verbose on my Dahada attempt at breaking it down there, but that one was just one of the biggest surprises of the year for me. Cadric Soul Kindler was in that Dahada Precon, and this legend rule doesn't apply to tokens you control. It's a nice backdrop for its ability. Whenever another non-token legendary permanent enters the battlefield under your control, you can pay 1. If you do, create a token that's a copy of it. That token gains haste. Sack it at the beginning of the next end step. Anything that I was recurring from the graveyard coming onto the battlefield entering, I pay 1 mana, I get a copy of it that can go ahead and do its thing that turn. Anytime you're making copies for just 1 mana, even if this is just in there to like copy a great ETB on your commander, or you've got some other legendary synergies in there, I think that Cadric is a card that just gets better over time and will be one of these like sneaky expensive cards in the next 5 years.
Yeah, this is definitely a lightning rod. Being able to get additional value out of what enters the battlefield simply by paying 1 mana, and then you get something that has haste. It's so much value. You're just getting 2 for once. Just it's so much value here.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. You know, I would have the new Bladewing ETB, pay 1, create a copy of it. It connects, hits, gets a bunch of 2/2s onto your battlefield, dies, and we still got a Bladewing left over.
Now here we have a fun card for the 99. For 1 green and 2 other, you're getting a 2/4. This is, I'm not going to be able to pronounce this. It's a F word and then Wayfarer. And when it's all colors, this ability doesn't affect its color identity. It can be in any deck whose commander's color identity includes green. Multicolored spells you cast have Convoke. So you're able to tap creatures in order to cast them earlier. That's essentially how Convoke works. It's a very, very strong mechanic. We've seen Convoke and Delve printed together on a card before, and that card got banned after quickly taking over an entire constructive format. Shout out to Hogak. Yeah, dude, it's just such a strong mechanic, Convoke. And again, more multicolored support, the better the card gets.
F-word Wayfarer turns all your creatures into mana dorks, and that's just so incredibly strong.
Yeah, next up we have Iridian Maelstrom, and for Wooburg, we're getting destroy each creature that isn't all colors. So pretty strong here as well. You're just getting a lot of support. You're going to see a theme here from the Painbow deck. You're going to see a lot of multicolored support from especially this list. You have cards that are going into multicolored that it didn't get before. This is a nice one-sided board wipe. Pretty cool.
Yeah, 5-color in Legends is what got the most love between these two decks. Having a card that is very specific like this means one of 2 things. 1, it'll never get used, and it'll really just never gain any value. Or 2, some incredible 5-color deck breaks out, and it's easily able to cast spells with all 5 colors in them, and suddenly this card, because it hasn't been reprinted, jumps up to $15. It's just that kind of card. It's a very specific tribal-ish kind of thing. You know, we've seen cards like this destroy all non-artifact creatures a lot this year, but destroying each creature that isn't all color, very specific, but the potential exists for it to break
like when
out.
You think about like Plague Wind, for example, it's so much higher a casting cost. So it's like having a one-sided board wipe that allows you to keep your stuff is always a big deal.
Yeah, Unite the Coalition's another card from that Painbow deck. You got Wooburg +2 for an instant speed. Choose 5. Modal spells are just so strong, and yes, we know this can only go into 5-color decks, but hey, if you're playing a 5-color deck, you're probably going to strongly want to consider Unite the Coalition. Choose 5, and you can choose the same mode more than once. Target permanent phases out. That can be used to save one of your things or remove one of their blockers, for instance. Target player draws a card. Self-explanatory. Exile target player's graveyard. Brutal. Unite the Coalition deals 2 damage to any target. Probably not going to activate that one as many times. Destroy target artifact or enchantment. Absolutely awesome. This is a really cool spell if you've got the means to cast it.
You know, it's funny you say you're not going to use the 2 damage, but it might come down to the fact that you want to just get in for 10 damage to the face, and it might come down to an instant speed, choose that same mode. The versatility on here is very attractive. Being able to draw cards, say you want to just clean up a couple things, maybe someone has an Aura Shards out there, you want to just take someone off their Soul Ring and then just draw some extra cards, give yourself some gas. Anything that's modal like this, I really do like. It is a high casting cost, and we do recognize that at 7 mana. But if you are playing 5-color, you're probably, unless you're playing some, I don't know, like Nagila or something like that, trying to win with, you know, the same CEDH cards, you're probably playing a pretty casual deck. So, yeah, it's a fun card.
All it takes is some broken 5-color commander to be printed, honestly, that says, you know, mana can be spent as though it were mana of any color, or something ridiculous built in just to the whole deck itself. And suddenly these 5-color cards become easy to cast.
Next up, we have Gerard's Hourglass Pendant. For 1 mana, we have a really pesky artifact with Flash. If a player would begin an extra turn, that player skips that turn instead.
Whoopsie.
Now that's pretty good, but that's not even the best part of the card. For 4 and tap, you can exile this pendant and return to the battlefield tapped all artifact, creature, enchantment, and land cards in your graveyard that were put there from the battlefield this turn. So say someone board wipes before your turn, before we get to your upkeep, on their EOT, you flash in Gerard's Pendant, pay 4, tap it, exile it, get all your stuff back. This is a nice little get out of jail free card in a lot of ways, and it can go into any kind of deck. I just like that it gets around board wipe, and it has the added power of really screwing somebody who's trying to play extra turns deck.
It's like the opposite of a Nevinyrral's Disc. 5 mana, flash it in, EOT, get all your stuff back, or just routinely stop extra turns. Not going to complain about that. Obsidian Obelisk is a 2 mana rock. It enters the battlefield tapped, so half of you already have your nose turned up at it. But stick with us, baby bear. You can tap it for a colorless, or you can tap it to add 1 mana of any color, spend it only to cast a multicolor spell. You know what we're not playing this in? Monocolor. You know where we are going to play this? Like 3+, and this rock is pretty excellent.
Dude, 3+, and it's doing a lot of fixing, and a lot of people are going to be like, run Arcane Signet. Yeah, I mean, why not both? Just run both.
Right.
It's just very good. I know that it comes in tapped, but if you don't have a multicolored spell, it's not like it's a dead card. You're able to just float it for generic mana or wastes, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, I think that this card is strong. I think it's a nice 2-cost mana rock.
Also, everybody stop trying to min-max your decks challenge 2022. How about that?
Tiller Engine. For 2, we're getting another card that, this is a nice modal card here. Whenever a land enters the battlefield tapped under your control, choose 1. You can untap that land. Okay, so that's really nice for anything that enters battlefield tapped. It has kind of like an Amulet of Vigor type effect for lands. It's kind of cool. And then tap target non-land permanent and opponent controls. So that can be really annoying, especially if you're playing a lot of landfall type stuff. It might be what you need to sneak through your attackers.
Yep. I like anything that's going to have sort of a pseudo landfall. It's kind of an interesting with this card, because this card, if it's used a lot, will go up in price, but it's most often going to be used in decks with a budget mana base. And so it's kind of this like, I'm interested to see where Tiller Engine goes. There was a lot of hype around this card. Obviously, we've included it as a card of note, especially at only 2 mana. I think that's a nice little converted on, an Amulet of Vigor-ish type effect. We'll see where the construct goes in the future, but I do think it's got some little combo promise.
Yeah, I think it's a fun card. It just gives you a little bit of versatility and lets you get a little bit more out of your land drops.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. Activated Sleeper is a Phyrexian on our list. 3 mana for a 0/0 shapeshifter with flash. It says you can have it enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature card in a graveyard that was put there from the battlefield this turn, except it's a Phyrexian in addition to its other types. So if you can board wipe and then have your 3 mana left over, or if you want to respond to your opponent's board wipe, this is the kind of card that, whatever creature was best that died, have activated Sleeper into the battlefield for 3.
Yeah, it is one of those cards that kind of, it is a graveyard, so you can do it with some of your own stuff. So say you want to replace something that just got aced. But it is one of those cards that gets better the better stuff your opponents have as well. If somebody's destroying, for example, maybe like a Sun Titan, have this enter as a Phyrexian Sun Titan in the moment, get something back from your yard. That's just one idea, but there's a lot of different cards that have really good ETBs that this plays well with. I think it's just, it's a black clone. It's a weird kind of dirtily one, but Flash is just so strong. We know how much Flash is good. You do have to kind of time it with a destroy spell so that you're getting something. So you're not exactly using this when you want to. You just have to make it work. But I do think it's a really good card, and players are going to want to work with it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, any deck like Nethroi Apex of Death or Carador Ghost Chieftain that is returning things from the graveyard to the battlefield, right? Like cast this from your graveyard if you've got your commander on the battlefield, specifically talking about Carador. I think that, this absolutely does have some play for the future.
Aristocrats well, too, if you want to get value out of stuff over there.
Yeah. Yep. Baru Worm Speaker is a green creature, Jake.
Dude, I love this card. 2 green, 2 other. Worms you control get +2/+2 and have trample. And then for a green and 7, you can tap it, create a 4/4 green worm creature token. This ability costs X less to activate, where X is the greatest power among worms you control. 3/3 worm tribal human druid. I can almost hear the music from Dune when I look at this card. Yeah, this is pretty fun. It gives a lot of eternal playability to a bunch of old worm cards. So if you're looking for something fun and casual, this is, in my opinion, a commander that's going to be really fun for you. You reduce that activated cost, and you're going to be able to make some crazy tokens for cheap.
Yeah, I really love that it does get better the more worms you have on the battlefield, just reducing that cost. I mean, ever since I started playing around 7th edition, you know, the big giant worm creatures was always something that I liked, was very drawn to. And so this very much speaks to a nostalgia factor for me. You know, giving them all +2/+2 and trample passively. Really what you want to do is get Baru out and start using that activated ability. Reduce it somehow or ramp into it so that by the time you're really rolling, you can even use some untap shenanigans and get multiple worms on the same turn. And Baru's just crapping out 6/6 trampling worms.
Yeah, it's definitely good in a worm-centric deck. I don't know how well it's going to do outside of that because that activated ability is dependent on the power of worms. So maybe if you want to play this alongside changelings in the 99, there's something to be said there. But other than that, it's a worm commander.
Get it off once, and you've got a 2-mana tap ability to create 6/6 trampling worms.
That's right.
Greensleeves Morrow Sorcerer is 2 green, 3 other for a star elemental. It's got pro Planeswalker and pro Wizards. Greensleeves Morrow Sorcerer's power and toughness are equal to the number of lands you control. So if you cast this on curve, we're looking at a 5/5 the turn it comes out. And then whenever a land ETBs, you create a 3/3 green badger creature token. Jake, every time a landfall happens, you're getting a 3/3.
Honey Badger don't care. Honey Badger don't give a shit.
At all.
That's right. Yeah, it's just a card that you get landfall and you're getting go wide out of it. So it's a nice card to bounce back. Say you have a fetch land sitting on the battlefield, you play this, you know, crack your fetch land, get some value out of it right out the gate. I think that this card is really good. I think that the land, you know, it's pretty sweet.
Yeah, it fits really well into any landfall deck that's already in existence.
Yeah, if you're in big mana, just play this. You're going to have a big creature that's going to make more tokens. Sure, it doesn't have a great suite of protection into it, you know, but hopefully you're playing something like Asceticism where you have some way to protect it. Next up, we have the Mana Rig. So for 3 mana, we're getting whenever you cast a multicolored spell, create a tapped Power Stone token. And it's an artifact with tap, add, wastes. This mana can't be spent to cast a non-artifact spell. And then for XXX, we can tap, look at the top X cards of your library, put up to 2 of them into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So this is a card that is a mythic that goes into an Artifacts Matters type situation.
Yeah, I mean, Artifacts Matters, really anything that's going to produce mana. It obviously wants to be in multicolored because those Power Stones, that can't, I think, is constantly catching people up because that can't is just 1 clause. It can't be spent to cast a non-artifact spell, but it can be used to activate abilities and things like that. So the Mana Rig does provide itself the mana to then look at the top 2 cards of your library, put 2 of them in your hand, the rest on the bottom of your library in any order, if you can activate this for 6. Now that does seem like a lot. 3 mana in, you're looking at the top 3 cards of your library, you're putting 2 of them into your hand. That's 9 mana. But look, I mean, it builds itself. I'm loving the fact that it drops a little Power Stone token, which I think is going to get even more love after Brothers War, for every single multicolored spell that you cast.
Yeah, it just goes into Multicolor Matters, and then, yeah, as long as you're not casting spells with it, I mean, it's kind of cool. And if you do have artifact spells, well then great, use your Power Stones to cast them.
Exactly, straight up. Torsten, founder of Benalia. Jake and I make our lists separately, but this is one that we mutually agreed on, among others in the video, but this is one I thought I was actually going to have to make a case for you too, Jake. 7 mana, white and green and 5 for a 7/7. When it ETBs, you reveal the top 7 cards of your library. All the creatures and lands go into your hand. Rest get put on the bottom of your library and randomly. And then when it dies, it leaves behind 7 1/1s. So it is a high mana commander, but it comes in at a time where you want to refill your hand with a ton of lands and creatures. And when it does go away, it leaves a nice little 7 power line still on the battlefield.
Yeah, and hopefully you have some sort of anthem or something like that to make those, if you can depend on them, especially if you build this as your commander, then you want to have a way to make sure that your soldiers are well taken care of. Yeah, this was a card that was an easy inclusion. It's big mana, for sure, but if you're ramping and stuff like that, you're trying to get to this card, so like Joel said, you can refill your hand, and then when it leaves behind a very nice line of creatures, and so that's why for me it was an easy inclusion even at 7 mana. It got a lot going on. It can be a commander. I like it as a commander. I like it in the 99 of decks as well. It's just got a lot going for it. I think it's really strong. Yeah, and it's a 7/7, which we didn't even talk about. I mean, it is a very nice, strong creature too.
Yeah, quite a threat.
Next up, we have a 3-cost creature. It's a 3/2, 1 black, 2 other for Moira Urborg Haunt. Legendary creature, Spirit Wizard. It does have Menace, and when it deals combat damage to a player, return to the battlefield target creature card in your graveyard that was put there from the battlefield this turn. So Menace makes it really difficult to block. So, you know, get in and on somebody who doesn't have enough blockers. That's typically a good way to, you know, use Menace. But what's really strong is if you do have this in some sort of Aristocrats type build where you are able to control what creatures die, then you're able to get them back and just get a lot of additional value out of your board state. Really good card. Really fun.
Obviously, this is really good in Dahada. It's a 3-mana legendary creature that can come down the turn before Dahada. It has Menace in addition to being granted lifelink, indestructible, and vigilance. And when it's interacting with these creatures that are being put into the graveyard from the battlefield and returning them, it's also playing into all of the synergies of that deck. So yeah, I think that this one has a lot of play in the future. 3 mana is really nice for this effect. And Menace, you know, I don't even care about your chump blockers, you know?
Like, I would just wait until I know that the card is going to get through and then use any sort of sacrifice effect to, you know, sacrifice whatever my most relevant ETB creature is and then get them right back in the moment. So yeah, really fun card. And now we have another card that's multicolored matters. Nice enchantment here. 1 red, 2 other mana cannons. Enchantment, whenever you cast a multicolored spell, mana cannons deals X damage to any target where X is the number of colors that spell is. So this is it's just a nice passive investment. Once you've made the 3 mana investment, it just sits on the battlefield and you just get value whenever you cast multicolored stuff. It seems like a kind of a no-brainer. It gets better with effects like Furnace of Wrath or anything that, you know, amplifies damage. But I think that the card is fun. I think it has legs, and it's one of those cards that gets better in time. It's super low risk at $1.
This one screams Jeskai spells to me. This is the kind of card that I could see getting beat by, you know, from somebody putting together their infinite loop of playing the same 2-color spell over and over and over and over and just storming off and winning with mana cannons. I think
that is, you know, any target too. That's not just opponent. So if you need to clean up the board, it's a good card to do it.
Exactly. But I mean, this one is reminiscent to me of Impact Tremors, really anything where something is going to happen. Right, exactly. It's similar to those cards in a different way. I do think that Mana Cannons is going to have some play later on down the line. And Reaver Cleaver wrapping us up here. 1 red, 2 other for an equipment. Gets +1/+1, has trample, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker, create that many treasure tokens. Wow.
Treasure matters. It's something that we talked about earlier in the video. I believe treasure first came to us in Ixalan, and we wondered, is this it? You know, we had seen other sort of, you know, tokens pop up in MTG's history. Some of them are forgotten about. Some of them are cultivated. Treasure is cultivated, and it's gotten better and better over time. And yeah, you know, it's actually a discussion in the community is just how strong treasure is. Yeah, it's a very good card, and I think, you know, being able to suit something up and make each of your creatures a threat is a big deal.
When I'll say this, every time a new Boros commander comes out, it seems like the word equipment is somewhere on there. And so every commander that is equipment relevant, you know, every commander that's equipment relevant is going to want this until the end of time. And that just seems to be the only thing that they can do with Boros commanders, is make them equipment relevant commanders. Those are our picks for Dominaria United commander cards that we like. Let us know down in the comments which ones you like, which ones you don't.
Yes, and then subscribe, because there will be more videos like this. So if you did enjoy this video, hit us with your love.